Interesting summary from Harry. Nigel, what is, just clarify it one more time, stance on immigration from UKIP? You cut net migration to, what, 30,000?
I made the argument earlier that we ran for 50 years a policy of between 30 and 50,000, very successfully, without immigration being a major issue in UK British politics.
Do you think that means you're quite backward-looking? You're just looking to the past and going, we'll do that?
There are 190 countries in the world who have a very strict immigration policy and a very strict work permit policy, and I would like us to be like the other 190. This European Union idea that somehow we can all move freely between rich and poor countries isn't working.
OK. We've got a question from Russ.
Yeah, we touched on it briefly before about your lovely poster that claimed 29 million people will be in Europe will be after our jobs in this country. There's a lot of campaign about saying that you're a racist party. Looking at that campaign, the actual figures were there were like 214,000 people actually migrated into this country. So are you a supporter of facts or fear?
Well, we support facts. And you know something? Before we came along, there were never any facts discussed about what EU membership cost. There were never any proper discussions about what was happening, you know, to people's wages in this country. The point is this. If you look at your passport, the plum-coloured, as it now is, British passport, the first two words on it are European Union, all right? And that passport isn't just for 63 million of us living here. Effectively, that passport is now open to nearly 500 million people. There are nearly 500 million people who unconditionally have the right to come to Britain. And the argument against that, I think, is a very strong and a very powerful one. It is that we should control who comes to Britain and on what terms they come to Britain. And that is what normal countries, responsible countries all over the world do. That is all I'm advocating. It's a very straightforward, very simple and actually non-controversial policy.
That's all very well, but you didn't answer my question.
Well, I did. I said to you.
No,
I said to you.
I support.
We deal in
we
facts.
Have the facts.
Yes.
Which you went out. You brought out a poster that said 29 million people. That's what we should be scared of. You're telling us people, the people that are frightened about fear about voting. You're saying to them, be scared. Those people over there, they're going to take your job. The reason why you haven't got the job, the reason why you got low wages, the reason why your life is being destroyed is because of those people over there.
The reason.
That is what you're selling.
Yeah. The reason we have wage compression in this country and the reason that millions of British families are worse off than they were 10 years ago.
That's not the fault of the people in Europe.
No one said it's their fault, but it's the fault of our politicians for allowing this to happen. Look, government, voting for government is about voting for people who have control. You know, we have a tax policy. We have a fiscal policy, a monetary policy. We expect government to do all of those things. Government equally, if it's a responsible government that cares about its own people and its own communities, needs to have an employment and labour market policy too, and we've thrown that out of the window by having a total open door to 500 million people. It is a big, big mistake, and it's damaged the lives of millions of ordinary people.
Just picking up on the sort of fact or fear thing, when you talk about Romanians and there being a difference between living next to Romanians to living next to Germans, what do you mean by that?
Well, what I was asked was, how would you feel, would you be concerned if a group of Romanian men moved in next door to you? I think the answer is you'd be concerned if a group of men from any nationality moved in next door to you. All right.
That wasn't your answer, though, was it?
Yes, it was. Oh, no, the question was, would you be concerned if a German family moved in or a group of Romanian men? If a group of any men moved in next door to you, you'd be concerned. But what wouldn't you? So if 10 blokes move in next door, you think that's perfectly normal, would you?
Yeah.
Well, that's the point.
Prices in London,
so you think that was?
Don't live in that.
You'd be really relaxed about it.
Afford to live in Zone 3.
I live in a place with 12 other people.
The Romanian debate.
You talked about Romanian debate. The reason why young people have a better and a stronger value about this country is because that they don't sprout hidden racist views like you've just done right there.
No,
we wouldn't be frightened. These people, our future, these children that are our future, understand that there are people from different
The Berlin Wall came down overnight. Ceausescu was strung up on a lamppost, and Romania, to all intents and purposes, was free. But it wasn't. It has not made the transition to being a Western democracy in a way that, say, Latvia, Lithuania have in many, many ways. And unfortunately, some of these countries, and you've got other former Russian state countries that are the same, are in the grip of organised crime to a very, very large degree.
ATM crime.
To a very large degree. Hang on,
ATM
hang on.
crime. You know that's all you're on about. ATM crime is very high.
I'm talking...
Don't say all crime.
I'm talking...
Okay, tell me the facts now. Shh, you're lying.
Well, if you want the facts...
Yeah, I want it now.
92%
of ATM crime... And
of all ATM crime in London is committed by these particular gangs. And the argument is simple.
That's
the Metropolitan Police... The Metropolitan Police want the power to stop gangs that commit ATM crime and traffic people.
So what about the rest of the country,
hang on,
Nigel? You're talking about London.
And traffic people. And the Metropolitan Police want the power to stop known gangs of people bringing people in through the Port of Dover. And again, doesn't that make sense? Wouldn't you want, as a country, to stop known criminal gangs from coming into the country? That's all.
Yeah. OK, if you can keep your questions and comments coming in to us here at Fight the Ballot using the hashtag #LeadersLive, that'd be great. We've got one now coming from Huna10. You talk a lot about immigration of people. What about the migration of big corporations out of the UK?
Well, big corporations move into countries and move out of countries. At the moment, we are becoming, in some ways, a less attractive place for people to come and do business. Unfortunately, we've lost a huge chunk of manufacturing in the last 10 years because we've made the price of electricity very expensive. And in the financial world, the non-banking financial world, we are beginning to see companies move, some to Switzerland, some to Singapore. So we need, we've got to be competitive, and I want to attract companies to stay in this country and to invest in this country.
OK, yeah, Max.
This whole thing is about trying to engage with young people, right? To get young people to register to vote. And I sent a tweet out earlier today, and the majority of my followers are young. And the majority of the responses, not all of them, to be fair to you, were negative. And this is all about getting, people registered to vote, young people who probably won't vote for you, OK? Judging by looking at the polls, you're not popular amongst young people. Are you... Why? One, why? And two, are you afraid of being on this and encouraging young people to register to vote? You're actually doing yourself out of getting more votes.
Well, who's to say? I mean, look, firstly, do I think we should be encouraging young people to vote? Yes. What do I think the key thing we could do to get young people to vote? Make politics matter. And if the British Parliament was a sovereign parliament, if our laws were debated and voted on in Westminster, not drip-fed across from the continent. So what I'm saying to you is this: if democracy mattered, more young people
But the vast
would
majority
get
of your support is not from young people at all.
It's interesting because across the continent, all the Eurosceptic parties overwhelmingly have a youth following. So Beppe Grillo, the former comedian, well, it's quite tough in politics to tell who they are and who they're not these days, but Grillo, overwhelmingly, his support's under 30. So this manifests itself in different ways. We have not... I mean, we are making progress with the youth vote. Of course we are. The point is, we've progressed more rapidly with other age brackets.
I had another tweet of somebody who was very nervous about the connections you have with far-right politics in Europe. And there are some horror stories. There are, Holocaust deniers that you apparently signed deals with and all these things.
No, that's not true, but go on.
Well, the question is, I want to know how you feel about who you stand with in Europe and their far-right leanings. Because if you are connected to... a Holocaust denier, then that really is that's a big problem.
I said, before these European elections, that we would do whatever we could, and if we had to make some compromises, just as the Greens and everybody has to make some compromises. Hang on. We will make some compromises to have the right voice and to represent our voters, but we will not do that at any price. So I've said very clearly that parties like the French National Front, the Austrian Freedom Party, we will not do business with. And if the cost of that stance means at some point we lose our voice there, then so be it.
Did you do a deal with that Polish MEP?
No. The accusation was that I'd done a deal with the leader of that party, and the leader of that party has said some pretty abhorrent things. I haven't. I've done a deal with one of his MEPs.
That's his MEP?
Who was never espoused those kind of views.
But if he's working with that MEP and that leader's made, just the most horrific
I know he
comments.
has. And I would never do a deal with that
And you've
leader.
done that to get money.
And I'd never ever sit with him. But I mean, look, you know, we've got.
I mean, that's a really serious compromise, though, because
Well, the Greens in the last Parliament. It's a shame Natalie Bennett's been on there. I mean, the Greens in the last Parliament were led by a bloke who wrote a book about sex with underage children and how totally acceptable it was. The Conservatives found themselves sitting with a group from Lithuania who had a very different view on the SS to the one that we might have.
I mean, so
The Labour
many
Party.
wrongs don't make a right. That's the point. If you're making
Everything
a deal,
in Europe,
Yeah.
everything in Europe is a compromise, and necessarily, if you're
Slide in.